of Rejoice in the Lord Ministries and president of the African American Council of Christian Clergy. Pastor Zach?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. No, Augusto Sambria?
Present.
Okay. Steve Jamerson?
Afternoon, President. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. Inez Long? John DeArmas? That's Wayne Rich?
Present.
Chris Earl? Dan Ward?
Present.
Major Ansueto?
Here.
Nadine Tarpley? Just need to unmute, but I see you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody on the call that didn't hear their name or didn't get a chance to respond?
John DeArmas.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
John. There's John. Okay, perfect. So now let's move into the approval of the minutes. Everybody should have received a copy of the minutes. I think it was sent a little while ago. Do we have any comments on the minutes? No comments? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Augusto. Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, Augusto, thank you. Do I get a second?
Dan Ward, I'll second.
Dan Ward, thank you. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? Does everybody agree? Say aye.
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 I didn't hear that many ayes. Anybody not in agreement of approving the minutes, say nay. Okay, motion passed. So now let's go on to the public comment portion of the meeting. So in an effort to comply with the CDC social distancing guidelines and for the safety of residents and task force members, the Business Compliance and Consumer Confidence Working Group will continue to conduct meetings virtually. Orange County remains committed to providing an alternative platform for residents to have the opportunity to submit their public comment. I will ask Orange County staff to read the public comment we received online and add it to the public record. Please note, public comments received that do not include the required information will not be read. Comments that extend beyond the set time limit will not be read in their entirety. However, the resident's entire comment will be entered into the public record. Please note that the time allocated to each individual for public comment via online submission may be reduced from the normal 3 minutes based on the number of speakers. Do we have any public comments?
Dr. Cadenas, we do not have any public comments for this specific working group today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Jason, if you can bring up the document, I went ahead and put together some of the things that we were doing yesterday, and I thought that if we had it in front of us, that it might be easier to get going on it. But I kind of wanted to start a little bit in reverse today. So rather than going back to where we left off with the first step, I think it might be easier for us to just get steps 2 and 3 out of the way. And for that, while Jason works on there it is, I see it. While Jason works on getting that up. So 2 and 3 would be about filing a complaint and non-compliance. And really, I think what needs to happen here is we know that the complaints are going to go to the state. How much time do we give the state to get those complaints to us? Do we say 24 hours, 48 hours? What do you guys want to see there? Hello?
Great if they could do it within 24 hours. I just don't know if the state can do that or not.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Wayne Rich. We had spoken briefly about the possibility of having an Orange County hotline that could be serviced by the county and any major complaints forwarded to the appropriate official.
I can't hear you very well. I don't know if anybody else can. Maybe it's just me. Can you speak up?
No, it's difficult to hear you, Wayne.
Is this any better?
Much better.
Sorry about that. Just to start over, we had talked about possibly having a hotline into Orange County to handle complaints or non-compliance issues, which would then be routed to the appropriate official, be it the sheriff's department or some of the in-county department heads. I'm just wondering if that might be more efficient than trying to have a complaint go from local to the state and back to local for disposition.
I think that's probably a recommendation we have to make because it doesn't exist today. Jason, Lucas, what do you guys think?
I think in the way Mr. Rich is describing it, we'd almost be essentially creating another layer, a voluntary layer. And from a streamlining point, it makes sense, but we would then be responsible for taking complaints and doing some kind of compliance, while the state, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, that's somewhat of their job. They're meant to be taking the complaints right now. I'd really need to confer with maybe some other staff to see if that would be feasible at this point.
Okay, so I guess we'll put that on an action item and we'll leave it alone for now. So assuming that it has to go up to the state and they're going to take care of that, how much time do we want to give the state to filter that complaint down, or list of complaints for however many complaints they get, down to Orange County? Is that 24 to 48, 48 to 72 hours? What do you guys want to see?
Have we been in touch with anybody from the state that is overseeing that website and filtering the complaints to see if they have any input on when they turn these around? I mean, because we can wish for the 24-hour turnaround time, but if they say, our status is it's going to take 48 to 72, and that's the way it's going to be, I think we're kind of stuck. So does anybody maybe from Orange County can advise?
I think Roseanne was the one that was speaking to that last time, and she's not on the call, so it's something we'll have to get with her on. But it is a recommendation, right? It's not a mandate.
Correct. This would be a recommendation, as you will, kind of like an aspirational statement. And then as such, if we make a recommendation here and put the days in, we can verify what their turnaround time is and plug it back in to this recommendation. I mean, that might be within a day or so, confirming how long it takes to come back from the state.
Madam Chair, if I can, I would recommend, say, 48 to 72 hours at this point, and then add a caveat that if a violation is so egregious, to call 911 or the non-emergency number to the sheriff's office, and we can look into it if it's that egregious. But if it's something that could wait a certain amount of time, then I think the 48 to 72 hour would be sufficient.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Anybody have any thoughts?
No, I'd agree with that. I think if it's, somebody's noticing that people are 4 feet apart at a restaurant, that's a lot different than there being 100 people at a house party. That's something I wouldn't want to wait to report to the state. I think in communication with the state, I think one question would be whether the plan is for them to notify the county and county staff, or whether the plan is for them to just make these complaints public. Is there an expectation that they're going to be, parsing out these complaints to all 60 plus counties in the state?
That's the assumption that we're working with, that they're going to be sent to counties.
Hi, this is Stephen. Would it be possible maybe to get someone from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation on the line to talk to us and see what their plan is. We were able to get the secretary for our reopening work group, and maybe instead of reinventing the wheel, we can find out if they may have some specific protocols already, and we'll know exactly what they're planning on doing. And it may be a little bit presumptuous on our part to think that they're going to do more than what they are already planning to do.
Jason?
We tried to get someone from DBPR for a meeting earlier this week, but they, like most of the state agencies in this sphere, are extremely busy. The secretary was on a call last week, but I know that was quite a monumentous occasion to bring him to our call. We can try to see. I don't know about bringing them on the call right now because Roseanne was our contact there to bring him to the call last week.
And I'm not suggesting it has to be the secretary himself, but perhaps another representative, or perhaps maybe staff can reach out. But again, I just think it's somewhat presumptuous on our part to request something that they already have in place that ours might be different from what they're willing to do.
So right now, Lucas is sending an email to the different contacts to see if we could possibly get someone here to answer questions.
Okay.
I go to the website link real quick and see if anything pops up that will show if there's any verbiage in there already on the turnaround time.
Yeah, we can do that. So I'm trying to do a quick scan, which is probably because the website is full of information.
What is the website? Is it myfloridalicense.com?
Let me go back here. So we can draft a recommendation, and we can just make it a draft, make it a working recommendation so that we can finalize it and wordsmith it and get it the way we want it and need it to be once we get feedback from the state. So while Lucas is trying to get a hold of somebody, how do you guys feel about
this is Stephen again. My recommendation would be if the state already has a plan in place, our recommendation, if any, would be to strengthen what the state is already doing locally here in Orange County, but we would have to have some resources dedicated to being able to do that. And I don't know if they're available. And if the state doesn't have a plan in place, that maybe our recommendation is the state put a plan in place.
I just went to the website and there's no information on the turnaround time.
And the other thing is the complaint form that you see in the DBPR website is specific to the executive orders that the governor has only. So, you know.
Augusto, did I just understand you?
What?
Did I understand you correctly when you said the complaint on the DBPR webpage, you could only essentially file complaints based on the executive order?
Well, there's a whole section on the DBPR website that talks about the COVID emergency response and says if you have a complaint about a business that's not following the executive order, there's a form that you need to fill out. It says complaints regarding compliance with executive orders 20-71 20-87, 20-91, and so on and so forth. So it's specific as to, and you know, and you have to be very specific. You have to say that if it's which type of license, alcoholic beverage, lodging, restaurant, vacation rental, barbering and cosmetology, other. I mean, the only thing is I'm saying is very specific.
Okay.
Hi, this is Stephen again. In this, I've just pulled up the governor's order. Section 7 does have an enforcement section, but it merely references a couple of statutes of what the enforcement order will fall under and what the penalty class will fall under, and that it would have a punishable of 60 days, not to exceed 60 days of imprisonment or a fine to exceed $500 or both, but it doesn't give an avenue of how to lodge the complaint or how long it would take for the complaint to be addressed. That's not on the enforcement section of the order.
Yeah, and that's something
the questions you're asking.
Yeah, that's something that sounds like the state and the county are going to have to work on. So as a compliance group, whatever recommendations we make, I think they're going to have to work out the details. Jason, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but we're saying this is what compliance and consumer confidence looks like. This is how we expect it to work. And then we make the recommendation and the state and Orange County kind of fill in the gaps for us.
That sounds very reasonable and a good path.
Okay. So,
Madam Chair, what is your recommendation on the turnaround time?
I believe that the 48 to 72 hours, unless it is something, as you stated, egregious, is a good starting point. They're going to point us to what they can and can't do, and they're going to fill in the gaps for us, but we're making a recommendation based on all of us here representing the various industries and what we know today. And there's a lot we don't know, so based on what we know today.
So, Madam Chair, did I hear correctly that that Orange County, like the license department, or business license department in Orange County, can't field these complaints? They can't?
So I think that's up to the mayor. When I heard him at the last press conference, I believe it was, I don't remember if it was earlier this week or maybe late last week, that he mentioned that he's already getting complaints through various avenues, and that it would fall into the business department, whatever department that is, to field these. So like I stated earlier, I think that's something that they're going to have to fill in for us, because we don't have knowledge about how the state or Orange County works specifically in the various details. And so we make the recommendation from an industry perspective, which is the reason they put us here, right? From industry, knowing our businesses, knowing our industries, this is what we think should happen. And they have to go in and figure it out or detail it from the government's perspective.
Yeah, but the way I see it is the so again, we did this whole, the task force approved the 7 guidelines. We are creating the Wall of Fame and the, you know, and the I wanted to say seal, but I don't remember what word or terminology we used yesterday, but
TBD.
the decal that they can use and all of those things. And again, it's a voluntary process in a voluntary program. So are we, when we say filing a complaint, is it a complaint for a business not following the 7 guidelines, or for a business not following, like, for example, in this case, a salon opening when they can't be open? Because I think those are 2 very different things. If you go to, because I just went to the DVPR website and I found the regular complaint form. And I think it's done so that you don't complain, because I mean, you have to almost write a thesis for them to actually receive it. and there is no, it doesn't say we're going to, it doesn't even say they will contact you. It just say submit it here and we'll figure it out. But what I was going to say is, I just don't envision people or the state appreciating that we send someone to file a complaint because, you know, a sub shop is not taking temperature of their employees when that is not a rule that is under the executive order signed by the governor. So they're not even going to pay attention to that. I think, again, so if it's in violation of the 7 guidelines, shouldn't Orange County be the ones receiving or fielding those complaints? If it's they're not following the law or the executive order, then it has to go to the state.
So I don't know about anybody else, but I envision that it is a little bit of both. I mean, this is all COVID, right? So COVID's got the 2 steps. We've got the executive order and we got the specific guidelines. And Orange County isn't doing anything in a vacuum. I think our 7 guidelines came from the CDC, which is what the state is referencing. So a violation of any of the guidelines is a violation of what the CDC put forth, which is a violation of what the state is supporting. So the state or the county, not sure, and Lucas and Jason, feel free to jump in whenever, but I think that is something that they would have to determine, maybe put a line item for a COVID-related complaint, whether it's executive order specific or specific to one of the 7 guidelines that Orange County has adapted that came from the CDC. Major or Jason or anybody have any other thoughts?
My thought process is this site, this link was dedicated specifically for COVID. And the state that's pushing this down, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, saying if you do have a complaint, to make that complaint there. So it gives the citizen an option. They can make a complaint with the state, or if it's so egregious, they can call our non-emergency or 911 and we will handle it. But I think this gives the state some type of tracking mechanism as well, as if all these complaints come in a certain business, there is some tracking availability there. So I think this was pushed back or pushed down from the state to the counties for everyone to use.
So I think we should continue to move forward. We've got all these questions, and I'm assuming Jason and Lucas, you guys are writing these questions down so that we can take them back and get more information. But if we can keep moving with the recommendation, because we're half an hour in and I think we've got about half an hour left. So assuming there's a mechanism, whether it's state or county, and we'll get that information at the next meeting. We'll get all the questions answered for us at the next meeting because we don't have those answers right now. Our recommendation would be that we be notified within, we being the county, be notified within 48 to 72 hours unless time is of the essence on a violation. Can we move forward with that?
Yes.
If we need to make a motion, I'll make a motion to move forward with 48 to 72 hours.
Anybody second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. And we owe everybody the information on the questions that have been raised. So we have to bring that back to the group. I'll let you finish typing, whoever's typing, and then we'll go on to notifying the business of non-compliance.
This language that I hear is just kind of capturing it. There'll be a little bit of, because I'll put the non-emergency number there and I'll spell out Orange County Sheriff's Office, but this is essentially, I think what everybody discussed, and I added that last, unless the violation is egregious, and then the next step. Is this okay with everybody?
Fine by me.
Yes.
I think it looks good.
All right.
Okay. So let's move on to non-compliance. So business receives a notice of non-compliance. We don't know what that's going to be. How much time do they have to correct? Do we give them the same 48 to 72 hours? Understanding that if it's supply chain constraint, they can't get a hold of hand sanitizer, PPE, whatever, that hopefully within 72 hours they'll be able to get a hold of. You know, if it's social distancing, they should be able to correct that hopefully pretty quickly, just putting everybody farther apart. What do we want to put here?
I think that depending on what the exact issue is depending upon how much time they actually should need. If it's something that has to do with social distancing, that's something that should be able to be corrected immediately, as opposed to a thermometer or hand sanitizer. That's something that they may not be able to get a hold of. So 72 hours seems like that's fair.
If I'm remembering correctly, the list of the list of guidelines doesn't specifically mandate or require PPE. If I'm remembering, I can't. Lucas, if you can find.
That is correct. That's correct.
So I don't believe anything that they would need to remedy would be in regards to purchasing equipment.
Just the staff temperature checks, which are recommended, and then facial coverings. Doesn't say any kind of specific PPE, it just says facial coverings. And sanitize and wash hands frequently. I'll put them in the chat so we have them.
We're bringing them up so we could look at them one more time.
Okay.
Hey, Jason, if you want to jot this down, the non-emergency number for our dispatch is 407-836-4357. And I'll confirm that before we get off our phone call, just to make sure it's the right one.
I think it's on the webpage, but I can check with it. So
okay.
We're bringing up right now the 7 guidelines. So you got to from yesterday.
Sure.
So in regards to what's being required, the only thing, wear protective face covering, which is not something that most people have to buy, and it recommends a temperature check without mandating it. Mm-hmm. So I think, I don't remember who brought up the comment or about is a supply chain, are people able to access it? I don't foresee that being a problem based on what's here.
So then the time to correct, is it 24 to 48 hours? Do we keep it at 48 to 72? Is it longer? Is it shorter? What do you guys think?
I think someone already mentioned this. If it could be remedied, immediately, then it needs to be taken care of, like the social distancing aspect. But if it's something where they ran out of face coverings, we might want to put some language in there. If this can be corrected immediately, it needs to be done. If you are lacking in PPE equipment, then you have up to 24 hours to, I don't know. I mean, that's something we need to discuss. I mean, because that's kind of a tough one. I think we've already talked about that, but.
Can we say something along the lines of that they should take all appropriate steps to address the situation immediately? Something along those lines? does it then at least say, you know, if it's the practicing social distancing, then they need to, that's something they can address immediately. But at least taking steps to address says that they're going to try to get PPE or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I don't think I'm comfortable putting an actual timeline on it with hours or days. I like what you said, I think it was Dan, of taking steps to rectify immediately.
The only thing that's really enforceable is the social distancing and the 25% occupancy, or businesses that open up that shouldn't. The rest of these 6 items are really the guidelines that we all agree to, and that's going to be our basis for the seal that we're going to do. And if someone is not following those and makes a complaint, then perhaps they just lose their status as being certified, or whatever we decide, whatever we called that yesterday. But it's not enforceable that says you have to go out and get PPE equipment. It's not required.
So, correct. So if we don't have a time frame and they lose their status, by when do they lose their status after making every effort to immediately correct or whatever?
Right.
All right, so this is some of the language that the last thing we landed on. A business that receives a non-compliance notice shall take all appropriate steps and it's to remedy or to cure the problem.
So immediately, I think, was the word that was used, shall immediately take appropriate steps, because I think Dan said it, just either order equipment or separate everybody. So to the point that was just brought up, do we want to include another line, or do we want to just leave it like that, kind of vague? But if we want to include another line that says failure to do so means you will no longer be part of the Wall of Fame. However, we want to, you lose your seal of approval, whatever. However we want to word that. Do we want to go that far, or do we just want to leave it like this?
I would leave it like this, because what are you going to do? Go physically and remove the seal from wherever they have? I mean, it's probably impossible for us to actually enforce if someone doesn't remedy it. So I would leave it like it is now, and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, we could remove them from the website. We can't physically take the
No, the website, I agree. Yeah, the website, I agree. But then the actual thing, whatever they decide to do with it, we're not going to be able to control it. Okay. That's a good question too, by the way. I don't know if we want to, Madam Chair, I don't know if we want to make sure that Orange County staff understands this, but are they going to also be monitoring the website? I mean, we know that they're not going to be monitoring complaints, but are they going to be monitoring the website, like who comes in, then who is compliant, who's not? If someone is not, who's going to be taking them out? I mean, is that understood that it will be managed by Orange County?
If I may, based on yesterday's discussion when we were talking about, what did we call it? The pledge or the commitment, but not the seal. It was a voluntary honor system type situation. And I think the idea was there was not going to be someone who is going to go to each business and do pop-up visits to see if they're doing what they need to do. Yes, there can be complaints that go to the Department of Business Professional Regulation. Yes, some will go to the sheriff's non-emergency number. But this is, the whole purpose of this was to create a positive affirmation, a positive compliance, positive reinforcement, wall of fame, reward those who are doing the right thing. However, we want to build in mechanisms that if you are deviating from that, there will be reports about it. And I want to stress the one we did yesterday. a very strong recommendation, but it was really based on the honor system.
And I don't foresee that there would be a lot of management per se, but I think a little bit of cleanup maybe, because if somebody falls off the wagon and consumers are putting in complaints, and they go to the website, they're not going to be very confident about our honor system if my business keeps appearing there, you know, as somebody that's committed, but yet, you know, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. So
I completely agree, Madam Chair. I mean, we are the business compliant and consumer confidence. You know, it's not going to create a lot of consumer confidence if half of the businesses that are in that wall of fame are not really abiding by the 7 guidelines. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and this is not going to go on forever either. So I don't see that there could be a super heavy burden on the county, but it might take somebody checking once a week.
Social media.
Yeah, once every couple of weeks or something, and just kind of keeping an eye on mainly complaints that keep reoccurring,
Right.
and then just making sure that that person isn't showing up on the website. What do you think, Jason, from the county's perspective?
I was caught up writing and having a discussion. Can you repeat that, please?
So I don't envision that this should take a long time. I mean, it may be like once a week type of a thing, kind of the complaints against the Wall of Fame. If somebody keeps coming up as a complaint, we're not going to keep consumers confident in our honor system if that business still is there. So, you know, somebody taking somebody off is the only thing that would need to be done. It's not really doing anything else.
I also think you need to be a little bit careful, because just because someone puts in a complaint doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Someone could have been at a restaurant, had a bad meal, and now is writing a complaint because the patron didn't get 50% off his meal or her meal because of the bad experience, and now that person's angry, is going to write a complaint unrelated. And I think you have to be careful just taking a complaint at face value without investigating it. And then if you have to go investigate them, that's going to take up a lot of time. So I think that's the flip side of just acting on a complaint.
Yeah, I was thinking more of a series of complaints. You know, if I'm getting 3 or 4 for the same thing, then 3 or 4 different customers, different times, there might be a basis for that. But I agree 100%. There are those customers that something went wrong and now it's completely unrelated. So you guys tell me what you want to do.
Dan sent in a comment to the chat, and I'm pasting it here for everybody to see.
Failure to address the issue could result in removal of the business from the county's public list of compliant businesses.
Well, but to our point, right? I mean, so someone will have to be in charge from the county side, making sure that that's enforced, right? I mean, who's going to manage the public list if not?
I think so. There's the complaints that go to the state. Then when they come down, and I know we talked about the webpage. I think some of these are going to be, once we start to, so they come past this group, they get to the full task force, so presumably then they get to the mayor. And if it's the mayor's will and starts to implement some of these things, the discussions are had internally about how to implement the recommendations from the groups. And we discussed yesterday, sometimes things will need to go to the county attorney's office. So I think from the group, if everyone is focused on, let's make the recommendation of what we think should happen, and then we can act, and then Orange County government is in a position to say, how do we implement what it is that they recommended?
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. So then we add the language that Dan just placed onto the previous sentence. Are we comfortable with that?
think that looks good.
Okay. So if we're comfortable with the language and in an effort to continue to move forward, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. This is Augusto.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Everybody in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any discussion? Okay, motion passes. So now let's go back to where we left off yesterday. Actually, the motto. Jason, I don't think we had finished with the I commit to follow the guidelines. We made the recommendation. Do we need to go back to that, or do you have everything you need on that and we just go with the motto?
The highlighted portion.
Do you mean from yesterday?
Yeah, because yesterday we made the recommendation that, to have the website and everything, but I had also on my notes, we started saying that, kind of like the terms and conditions, that a business would say, I commit to follow the guidelines set by Orange County to help keep my staff, my customers, and my community safe.
You need it.
We didn't continue down that path because we just made the general recommendation.
Okay, hold on. I'm pulling up the document.
So stop.
I'll have to stop sharing.
And what I'll do for you is when you go back to screen share, just do your desktop. Don't do an application. Do screen.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the first, so they're pledged 111, we commit to follow the 7 guidelines for reopening set by Orange County to help keep our staff, customers, and community safe and healthy. We started discussing that yesterday. I don't think we made a motion to approve that specific wording that somebody commits to once they're done filling out their information. And the follow is, you can see it in red and bolded. It's just because we're trying to keep the language consistent with the recommendation that we made yesterday.
In 111, it says follow the 7 guidelines, but in 121, just below that, it says follow the recommended 7 guidelines. Should we add recommended 7 guidelines in 111?
Good catch. We can do that.
No, recommended 7.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. And then the badge, pledge, seal, we're going to leave that to Orange County to decide what and how they want to use it. So if you guys are comfortable with that language, I would just like to get a motion to approve those 2 things, 111 and 121, and we can continue to move forward.
So moved.
Okay.
By who? For the minutes, please.
And Suedo.
Stan, I'll second.
10 seconds. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Perfect. Motion carries. Okay, now to the motto, and we just, here again, we just make a recommendation. We can leave it up to Orange County and marketing departments and whoever they need to do that, or we can say, hey, we would like to see this as the motto, hashtag, the thing that carries across our marketing. I know, John, you had some thoughts yesterday on what the seal should say, so I'll open the floor for you guys to discuss. Those are just some ideas I threw together, by the way. That's not set in stone at all.
I think if we're going to make a recommendation I kind of that we're recommending as part of that consumer confidence initiative that we recommended yesterday, that the county consider or include a theme or a hashtag to facilitate social media communication, facilitate community communication. That to me would be the recommendation. And then this list would be, some potential options may include. So I don't want to dictate to the county marketing department that they must use these things. It's more, consider these options.
I agree with that. Anybody
Dan,
else?
can you repeat that, please, so I can write it? You said it so eloquently.
He did.
If you want, I can type it into the chat function.
Yes, that'd be perfect. And then I'll bring it to the screen.
So while Jason does that, does anybody want to suggest anything else that the county can consider? Or do we just leave it as is? And we're doing good. I think we've got a lot accomplished so far today, so.
So Dan, so if I have this correctly, you're wanting the county to come up with whatever the slogan or whatever the verbiage is going to be for our seal or whatever we call it. And then the hashtags are just something that people can relate to and tie into the main verbiage.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Yeah, I think as a group, I think our recommendation would be to come up with this program or come up with a theme. I'm just a little hesitant to suggest here's what that theme should be and make that part of our motion, because now we're almost kind of dictating to the professionals on the marketing communications team how they should do it. I think we should just give them enough leeway to develop that. I do think we can maybe give them some suggestions. But to me, this is part of how we give the public the opportunity, the public and the businesses themselves, an opportunity to reinforce these recommendations and the fact that they're following them. And if we're able to do it in a short 2 or 3 word theme, that makes it a little easier for them to put it into a hashtag, include it in their social media marketing, things like that.
Got it.
Dan, coming back to you, I wasn't clear. Did you want the entire language as part of a consumer confidence initiative, the working group, or is it the way I have it here acceptable to you?
I think that's acceptable. I was just doing it almost as a follow-on, because yesterday I know we discussed the motion of recommending a consumer confidence initiative. So this to me was just kind of a follow-on to that.
Did you have any other feedback? I know you were working on this yesterday. John DeArmas?
No, I like the idea of leaving it up to the marketing folks in the county and implementing it. I did have two components that I wanted to recommend to this task force that I believe will make this initiative stronger. And if you let me share them now or later or next week, that would be great.
Since we're on this right now, are they related to this?
They are related to this.
I think you can go ahead then.
I like the task force to consider these 2 recommendations. One, and again, this is all embodied in the seal and the promise. I think that there's 2 initiatives that would make this stick and would increase the amount of people complying. One of them is the production of 1-minute spot that would film how the 7 different recommendations are actually visually implemented in a restaurant or in a shop or in a gas station or whatever, or the retail. Showing people wearing the mask, taking the temperature reading, doing that. People nowadays mostly follow visual cues, and most people don't read anymore. So it's very important to make this visual. And of course, that spot can be put on the county and websites and whatever other sites. It could be run as a PSA on the news organization. So I think it's something that really embodies everything that you guys have been working so hard. The second one, to again achieve more compliance, because we're trying to do this for the community and get people to do it. It'd be great to start seeing during the daily news conference, or I don't know what they call, what the mayor does every afternoon. Every time that he talks about COVID and the doctors get up, eventually when the time is right and this is in place, it would be really good to bring some businesses in Orange County during those conferences to talk about how successfully they are applying the 7 guidelines and how their business is growing and thriving. Two reasons. One, that encourages peer pressure. It also encourages, oh, this is how this guy did it, or this is where this guy got the thermometers when I couldn't get it. And it also starts shifting the conversation from a virus and the imminence of a pandemic that can kill people to here we are opening it up, and these are businesses are doing good, they're thriving under the new conditions, and look how well they do based on the fact that they are applying the seven recommendations that we've set forth.
Okay, sounds good to me.
I have a suggestion. In regards to what you're saying, the takeaway from that, or one of the takeaways, is the 1-minute PSA that you said is very important, messaging, how to do it. I think we can add that to this recommendation, the development of a theme or hashtag and a 1-minute PSA to facilitate public communication and reinforcement.
I would vote for that.
But John, were you saying for the businesses to do their own PSA, or we showcase that? Or
No,
Jason, are you saying that the county does a 1-minute PSA
right.
at a no-name business to show, servers with masks on, hand sanitizing stations, etc.?
Right. It's an upbeat message of the county. The county would produce it. Whoever, I'm sure the county has tons of capabilities to produce videos. They would produce no more than a 1-minute spot showing people applying the 7 recommendations, visually seeing all 7 of them, the distancing, the masks, the temperature readings, and so on. And, in a nice upbeat, so it's almost like good news, even though we're going through this hell, but we're doing what we need to do to stay safe and healthy. So it can be a very positive message. And again, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but people nowadays don't read. They don't read, they see. So a visual component, if you want compliance to improve, I think this is required.
John, I think that's a great idea.
We concur with that. So kind of to move the ball forward here, I know that we're a little short on time, so we want to make sure that everybody has ample time to consider the recommendations before us, move forward to a motion, a second, discussion, and a vote, and the next steps.
Okay, so the Business Compliance and Consumer Confidence Working Group recommends the development of a theme, hashtag, and 1-minute public service announcement to facilitate public communication and reinforcement. Can I get a motion to approve that recommendation?
So moved. If no one will else come up, I make a motion.
Okay.
Is John
Major Sueto with the first, with the motion, and the second?
Rich, second.
Rich is the second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just maybe a little bit of a amendment to it, I guess, or a change. Not anything too material, but I do think the 1 minute may be a little bit limiting because the county may also want to do some PSAs for radio, social media as well, and sometimes on those you just want those to be 15 or 20 seconds. So we may just want to say and public service announcements. Just take out the time frame on it.
Bill Major and Suedo, are you comfortable with your first on that? Or do we have to restart the process?
I'm sorry, I did not catch that. My apologies.
So you made the first move to approve. With that change, can we still continue? The motion to approve?
Yes.
And Rich, can we continue with your second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Well, I think, Jason, we got through everything today, except we have some questions to go get information on. Do you agree?
Yes, I'm very pleased with everyone. We've landed the ship. I just have a couple quick announcements. So the next full task force meeting is next Wednesday. I believe we have tentative meeting schedules for Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Do we need to meet again since we've already next week, Monday, since we've firmed up these recommendations? If I can make a recommendation, we should probably meet on Thursday, of which we can try and get answers to some of the questions regarding DBPR and some of the other things, and we can post or cancel the Monday meeting.
On Thursday, let me just mention on Thursday, that's the day that the town hall meeting is taking place for the religious community. It's at from 2 to 3. So that wouldn't be conducive. And then I think the chairs and the co-chairs are going to be asked to try to come to that meeting as well.
Thank you, Pastor Zach, for pointing that out. But I guess I know we've been meeting 2-3 times a week now, and I know your time is all very valuable. So to have a meeting just to meet, I don't know if that's a great use of your time.
So let's have a meeting when we can get the information. So if Monday is too soon to get the questions answered, then maybe the next meeting should be Friday just to get the questions answered. Now, if the next meeting is Friday, I mean, we could still present our recommendations on Wednesday because they've passed, correct?
Okay, yeah, that works. So I think Monday will be too soon, being that it's 3:30 on a Friday. So we can cancel Monday's meeting. Thursday, there's another engagement, like Pastor Zach said, regarding the faith-based community. And we can see them up Friday, and if not, possibly go into the next week.
Is everybody comfortable with waiting till Friday to get the answers?
No, we have one.
I don't think it impedes the progress of the recommendations. It just kind of puts more flesh on the bones. So from my vantage point, Friday should be fine.
So we do have a meeting for Tuesday. I apologize. We have one for Tuesday. So Tuesday might be more realistic.
I'm good with that. Everybody feel okay with that?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Great.
I will have a fill-in starting on Tuesday for pretty much the remainder of the week. I might be able to attend or turn into the meeting on Thursday or Friday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm definitely out.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all the business we have.
Madam Chair,
We're already at 3:30. Yes, go ahead.
just to let you know that as requested, I submitted a list of 15 questions to Jason and the county to be considered for the questionnaire that this task force recommended. So there's a overall 15 customer sentiment questions for their consideration. They got that this week. So I just wanted you to know.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I want to wish all the moms, if there are any moms here, happy Mother's Day for the weekend. And everybody, remember to call your mom, treat your wives. I don't know, however you celebrate, but have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Jason, I think
You
we're good.
too. You
Happy
too.
Mother's Day.
Thank you, Madam Chair.